we're recording now. What I might do is I sometimes find it easier to talk at slides, so I'll share my screen to start with and come back sort of face to face. I hope people can see what we're looking at there. Again, can I just get someone just to use the chat and just tell me or not whether you can see? Great, thank you. Okay, so let me start with the good news, I guess. So there's a table here with that outlines stages, and it's in small print, so just bear with me. I'll paraphrase or give an overview. So we've made our way through stages 0 and 1, and we're in stage 2 at the moment of the kind of return to normal proceedings. As of the 1st of June, I'll reintroduce some face-to-face things in a limited capacity, but from the 17th of August, can recommence practical classes. And so that's what I've got circled there in black. So what that means is that next semester, if things remain the same and there are no there's no sort of intervention by state or federal governments, depending on obviously on what they're informed of and things like that, we'll be able to meet next semester, which I think which I think well, I hope everyone agrees is a good thing. So the date is yet to be confirmed. It had to be changed earlier, but there'll be reasonably soon there'll be an announcement as to when in second semester you'll come on campus. It's likely to be late August or early September, just to let you know. There's no set date, but I thought I'd start off at least with some good news. The campuses are sort of, as you can tell, slowly reopening. But on to some more assessment-specific things. So the principles of cardiac sonography is where I'll start. As you know, there are 3 assessment items: the online quiz, research assignment, and case report. Let me just remind you that the case report is due this Friday. Obviously, you've had your online quiz, you've received the research assignment marks and comments, and the case report will complete the assessment items for the principles unit. And obviously, that unit hasn't been impacted nearly as much as the practical unit. With regards to grades for this is the normal way that the principles, this is the normal way that all units are graded or grades are awarded, with sort of the 5 different categories from pass up to high from fail through pass, credit, distinction to high distinction. And that will be used again, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. Because this semester has been interrupted, there is means to have your grade displayed or awarded in a different way. And I'll explain that in a moment once we start talking about the practice of cardiac sonography. So I might very briefly pause there and just check. I think the principles of cardiac sonography is least likely to warrant questions, but I'm just pausing at the moment, looking at chat. I can't see any questions. I just got a text message from someone saying that they can't get in. Sorry. So let me. I'll just be staring at the staring at the screen here for a moment, wondering how I can very briefly reply to this person. I'm guessing that because everyone else is here, it's pretty visible via the view side. Announcements. I'll just quickly reply. Please see views announcement. Exam info Zoom. Sorry, everyone. Okay, send that. Let me come back. Okay, so no questions. So I might return to those slides again then. And we'll talk more about what's going to be a little bit more informative. I hope you can still see the screen. Please, someone let me know if you can't, but if you can, don't worry. So as you know, with the practice of cardiac sonography 3, there are 4 assessment items: the imaging evaluation, and with that, we're currently marking it. I hope to have that to you again very soon. I apologize that things are taking time this semester. Bear with me, we'll get that back to you as quickly as we can. There's a written exam and practical exam, and I can tell you details about them now in some detail. So let's start with the written exam. Now, there's a lot of print on this particular page. It will be available tomorrow for you to look at more carefully, more closely, but I'll just go through it now and try and highlight a couple of things here. It won't let me highlight it when it's in full screen mode, so I've got to use this one. So the written exam, importantly, as you probably know, and you've been getting emails, is an online exam. Okay, so it's going to be delivered online. Access will be via views, and the exam date is the 19th of June. Now, the 19th of June, let me just the 19th of June is a Friday. I'm not sure of the time, but you will certainly have an email and you'll be able to access details about that. And I'll send out another note, at least one, with details of the time. With regards to the time, there's no specific start date, start time. It's a little bit like the multiple choice question exam. There's a window. The window isn't nearly as long. It's, I think, it's where am I? Sorry, I'm getting a message from someone I'm trying to ignore. It's going to be a 2-hour window. So if, for example, the exam was start time was 9 o'clock, you would have between 9 and 11 to start your exam. And then you've got 1 hour to complete the exam. Now, before you start asking questions, let me just explain a few other things, and hopefully we'll get to the end. But one of the things about the exam is that there is some surveillance of the exam. So you'll receive emails that will provide you with details about how, in the first place, to ensure that you've got the right technology to access the exam, but also there'll be opportunities for you to test things and do a kind of a mock exam so that you're all prepared and ready, so that on the day there are no surprises. So yeah, that's what's what happens in terms of accessing the exams. In terms of the exam content itself, this is kind of less surprising, as it were. Content is similar to what you guys who've done exams last year at the end of semester are used to. There are multiple choice, short answer and long answer questions. The multiple choice questions, there will be 10 questions, each worth 1 mark, and they are a single best answer. If you answer one right, you receive 1 mark. If you answer one incorrectly, you don't receive a mark. There's no negative marking. The short answer questions, there are 6 short answer questions, and what we mean by short answer questions is questions of 3 to 4, answers to questions, and answers that are 3 to 4 sentences long. Of those 6 questions, one of them will refer to an image. The other ones will just be the questions, will be in text. Each of those 6 short answer questions is worth 2 marks. And the marks are given for the following: for content and for expression. So what that means is that the majority of the marks are given if you provide appropriate content. And obviously that depends on the question. So if the question is something about pulmonary hypertension, if you give the appropriate details about pulmonary hypertension, that's good. And if you express that in a logical and clear way, that's likely to, I guess, receive 2 marks. The reason there are marks for expression as well is that the idea is not simply to just provide a whole lot of an answer that just comes completely off the top of your head without any thought, and there's no sort of a structure to your answer. Now, we're not asking for something that's perfect. We understand that it's an exam situation and there's a time limit. But what we don't want is you just to dump information down, everything that you know sort of related to pulmonary hypertension. We want you to answer the question. I hope that makes sense. It's actually got to be written in a manner that shows some knowledge on your part. Moreover, we're in the second year of a postgraduate course, so you've got to be able to sort of structure answers appropriately. Long answer questions are similar, though not entirely the same. There are 2 long answer questions. Each of the long answer questions have 3 parts, parts A, B, and C. In both of the long answer questions, part A refers to an image, parts B and C don't. The entire question will require about 12 lines of text. Okay, so give or take. and each of the long answer questions is worth 6 marks. Again, marks are given for content and for expression, and I think it's even more important in this one where there's more marks given, is just obviously before writing things down as quickly as you can, you need to just think and make sure that the answer that you're going to give is going to address the question that you're being asked. So that's the written or the final exam, which, as I said, is on the 19th of June. So that is going to occur in about 3.5 weeks' time. I might just stop sharing there and see if anyone has any questions about the written exam at the moment. I hope there aren't too many surprises there. Okay, so sorry, just let 2 other people in. I can't see any questions. There's a question. So there's a question about, can it be between a certain number of hours, and is there a time frame longer than just a 2-hour time frame? The short answer is no, and it's not me making that decision, it's the university. And one of the reasons that there's a short time frame is this is an individual examination, and they want to prevent any collaboration between students. So when you receive confirmation of a time for the 19th of June, you'll be given details of the time frame in which to start your exam, but the time frame won't be a long one. It will be limited, and I think the upper limit will be 2 hours. So I hope that answers that question. Now, I know that it may mean that you need to take leave or find something to do to help family, children, whatever the case may be. That's I can see some other questions here. The initial date was the 26th of June. Yeah, that's not the date any longer. The date is the 19th of June. Now, I will tomorrow ask the university to confirm that, but the latest information I have, and I received that yesterday, is that it's the 19th of June. Okay. So unless you hear differently from me, but I will confirm it, anticipate that the examination date is going to be the 19th of June. Okay. There'll be a chance for more questions at the end. I might talk for a moment about the practical, so about the written exam. So we're talking about the written exam here. That's written exam. It's an online exam, and you're going to be typing if you call that written. So we're talking about we're talking about the practice of cardiac sonography 3 unit, practice of cardiac sonography 3, final exam, which initially in the learning guide was going to be a written, but obviously that has changed. It's now in an online format. You'll be able to access it via Views, and the 1-hour exam will be entirely online, and the format as per what I just showed you. Now, I will make available those details. What there will also be from the week before that, from I think the date's the 8th of June, is the first day of study week. There will be exemplar questions. So just so you can get sort of your mind around some of how some of things, some of the questions are going to be framed, just to help in your preparation. Okay. So I'll share the screen again here. So now I want to talk to you about the practical exam, okay? Is there anyone in the waiting room? Not as far as I can see. So now we're talking about the practical exam, okay? One of the really important things to mention here is that the practical exam is going to be undertaken in your clinical training site, okay? Now, I know again that is a lot different to what was advertised, but there is really no practical way that it's going to be able to be completed at the university in a manner that's going to enable us to help you to commence semester 2 and potentially graduate at the end of the year if this isn't done in the following way. So let me go through everything, and then there'll be lots of space for time for questions at the end. The date or the dates. So you'll be asked to complete specific tasks on the 22nd and 23rd of June. So that's the week after the online exam. So Tuesday the 22nd and Wednesday the 23rd, you'll be asked to complete specific tasks, and we'll talk about the tasks in a moment. And then on Thursday the 24th, you'll be asked to submit studies, images that you have completed via a link that you will be given. In preparation, what you will be sent, sorry, there's someone in the waiting room. What you will be sent is some preparation material, okay? On the 8th of June, which is a Monday, in a couple of weeks' time, you'll be sent what are called imaging and measurement pools. So those pools will provide details of the kind of images and measurements that you potentially will be asked to acquire and to make in the course of the exam. So those pools are drawn from, obviously, the material that we've been covering this semester. And if you have been keeping an eye on the imaging sequence document, you'll be well prepared, because those pools are largely just condensed form of the imaging sequence with specific reference to things we've been doing this semester. The day before the exam, you'll be given the specific tasks. So via Views, the day before, you'll be told exactly what to do, or what images and measurements you'll need to submit. As you prepare the documents, I strongly encourage you to to look at, and the resources I ask you to look towards: the demonstration videos, the imaging sequence, and the examination guideline. Okay, so those three, which you already have access to. The tasks drawn from those pools, there will be 3 tasks, okay? And each of those tasks has 6 components. That sounds like a lot, but you guys are very capable of doing it. The 6 components just means sort of, one of those will be imaging from a certain window, and another one will be a slightly different window with a different imaging modality. So for example, you might be imaging initially from parasternal long axis view and acquiring measurements, and then the next task will be, the application of color or measurements or something along those lines. You'll be asked to critique your images as well, and for one of the sets of images to provide a condensed report. So it's not a full report, it will just be very specific about things. Okay. The way that we ask you to do it, so we're mindful that because it's happening in a clinical environment, that that clinics just can't stop everything from happening. So what we will ask you to do is do the 3 tasks on 3 separate patients. Now, let me just reaffirm that this can be done on Tuesday the 22nd or Wednesday the 23rd. And I hope on those 2 days that there will be at least 3 patients for you to image. Okay. The tasks are to be completed within each patient's routine study. So the reason we want you to do it that way is we don't want you to be interrupting everything, dropping everything, as it were, just to complete these exams. We want it to be, something that reflects the, to some degree, the way you go about your practice. But obviously, we might ask you to do just a little bit more than you ordinarily would be. And I'll get to how I will contact your clinical training sites shortly. The exam itself, we will ask you to upload a complete exam and upload it in what's called DICOM format. Now, some of you will be completely okay with that and understand what I'm talking about. Some of you may not be, but DICOM format is simply a way of downloading the files from the machine in a way that is standard, so that these images can be viewed. It's an international standard, so that when they arrive with us at the university, we can then access those images and then go to the relevant parts of those images to go about, making providing grades, etc., etc. Now, I know this sounds a lot. I will go through this at least one more time with you via Zoom, and there will be these details for you to go through as well to sort of get your head around. There are some things we'll ask you to do in terms of the machine. We want you to display certain things on the machine. So when you're acquiring 2D images, for example, you'll want to make sure that the frequency and the frame rate are shown. When acquiring color images, the frame rate is shown, and then pulse wave Doppler, tissue Doppler, that the sample volume size is displayed on the display. Let me stop sharing there for a moment. Now, if that hasn't generated some questions, I'll be very surprised. So, now there's a question here. The 21st of June is a Sunday and the 22nd is a Monday. Okay, so That's good. That's right. So is there a typo here? Let me just go back to what I was showing you. So the 21st of June, sorry, you're absolutely correct. Thank you. It's the 20, it will be June the 23rd and Tuesday, June the 23rd. Thank you. Tuesday, June the 23rd and Wednesday, June the 24th. Thank you for telling me, Taylor. I'm very sorry for that typo. So already we're getting to the bottom of things. So the online exam will be on Friday the 19th. You will be not be examined on the Saturday and Sunday following that. You'll be sent details of the practical exam on Monday the 22nd of June, and then asked to conduct the exam on Tuesday the 23rd and Wednesday the 24th, and to submit your images on Thursday the 25th. I'm very sorry for the typos. They will be corrected, and I'll make that clear via views. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry for that mishap. You will not be examined on weekends. Obviously, there are a number of reasons why it wouldn't be practical in a clinic. Just while there aren't any questions or while you're thinking of things, I'm going to go back to that document for just a moment. And I'll get to a question that's just arrived in just a moment. I won't let any questions go unanswered, I hope. So I'll share the screen again. In terms of the way the unit, let me just change something right here. I can see that it's not correct. In terms of the way that the unit is going to be graded is as follows. So bear with me. This will take just a little bit of explanation. Okay. So grades will be awarded as per the 5 tiered system that we normally use, from pass through high distinction. However, because this has been such a difficult semester, if you would prefer, and this is up to you, you can choose to be graded according to the following. You can choose to have on your academic record your grade for this semester for both units, principles and practice, but I think it's probably most likely to be the practice that you'll want to consider this for, is you can choose to have what's called an ungraded pass. So that simply means that if you have achieved a pass or better, but perhaps are, for example, a little bit disappointed about your grade, you can simply choose to have what's called an ungraded pass. Now, the thing about an ungraded pass is that there's no number that goes along with that. So it will not influence your grade point average. Okay, it simply enables you to move from one unit to the next, but as the name suggests, it's ungraded. Secondly, if things go badly and you didn't pass the unit, because it's been so difficult, you can at any time before semester 2 or before spring semester starts withdraw from the unit, even at this stage, without academic penalty. So that means that instead of receiving a fail grade, you will simply receive what's denoted as a W grade, or withdrawn. So there's no academic penalty. Obviously, there'll be financial implications because the university won't refund your money, but you won't receive an academic penalty. So that's the way that units will be marked, graded this semester, as a way of trying to provide as much flexibility and work in some understanding into the marking criteria, given that it's been so different and difficult for the many reasons that you have encountered. So I hope that's kind of clear. There's a question here, and keep coming with the questions. I'm very happy to answer them. So there's a question here. A whole study consists of 80+ images. Do you submit that? In short, yes. So what, and we'll make it very clear. I'm just trying to get your mind around things to start with. In short, yes. I will get you to submit 3 studies. Now, you don't have to do all the tasks in each of those 3 studies. You'll just have to do the tasks, one of the tasks that you're asked to do in each study. But you submit the entire study and indicate on another document that you will send which images are the ones that answer the questions that you're asked to answer, or images that you're asked to provide, so that they are the ones that will be marked. Okay. The benefit of that is that you won't then have to go and cut and paste exams. You won't have to spend a lot more time, deleting things, etc., etc. You just send an entire study to me, and we mark the relevant parts only. It also gives us the provision to provide some feedback from other things. Now, the other images that aren't part of the tasks will not influence your mark at all. It's only, we want you to show, or we will be marking the images related to that particular task that you're answering, but we still can provide you with some feedback. That's a long way of answering that question. I hope it makes some sense. Can we decide our grade after the results, or is there a cutoff date? I believe that you can choose after you receive. Now, that's an excellent question. Thank you. I'm just going to write that one down so that I make sure that I get back to you about that. And I'll confirm that the answer, but I'm almost certain that you can do so after you receive the initial grade. So your initial grade will be provided in the normal format. If you're not happy, you can ask to have an ungraded mark or an ungraded pass. And if you fail, you can ask to be given a W grade withdrawn. Obviously, that means that you'll have to do the unit again, but it won't mean that there's a fail grade recorded on your academic record. Tanvi's written something kind. Said it makes sense. I hope I'm making some sense. I don't feel as though I'm making a lot of sense. um, now, I just guess I thought of a couple of questions that might come to mind in the next little while for you. How long is this going to take? There's another question. I'll get to it in a moment. It all depends on a number of things. So the tasks themselves, we anticipate that most of the images will probably be part of a fairly routine echo exam. So they might not add a lot to what you do ordinarily anyway. What will add the time is obviously transferring the files here, as well as providing some critique on the images and a report. But given that this is an exam, I hope you appreciate that what it means is that you're not going to be traveling to and from the university and doing other things. I mean, exams would take time anyway. So it will take some time. It's hard to tell exactly how long, but hopefully it's not going to encroach too much on your clinical practice. Some questions. Does fail include compulsory fail or no compulsory fail? I don't know. I think it simply covers a regular fail grade. So compulsory fail grade would be something like not submitting a threshold assessment item. There may be some other things, but so if you undertake all the assessment items and you fail, you have recourse to that no fail policy for this semester. I don't think it relates to a compulsory fail, but I can ask that question and find out and provide answers. I'll have to provide some answers for a few things. I'm sorry that I can't be more clear about that one. For measurements, are you expecting 2 to 3 repeat measurements for people in sinus rhythm, for example, aortic root measurements? Are you wanting 3 concurrent measurements or sufficient ones? So, okay, thank you for asking. So, for measurements of Doppler waveforms, yes, I'll be wanting more than one. And if the patient is in atrial fibrillation, you'll do more than that. Now, because you have some flexibility in terms of selecting patients, I would encourage you within reason to try not to make acquire images on patients with an arrhythmia, simply because it means it's more difficult for you. So if you were to come to the university and ordinarily when you do an exam, the patients would be, we hope, normally are, in sinus rhythm, or at least a regular rhythm. So I suggest that you do that. Now, excuse me, 2D measurements don't require you to repeat them. But obviously they need to be done according to the standards, for that particular measurement. So if, for example, you're measuring the left ventricular outflow tract, you measure from the black-white interface, inner edge to inner edge, in early to mid systole, etc., etc. You know, at the leaflet hinge points, and you guys know these things, and they're guidelines and things that we've pointed you out towards. So I hope that answers that question. Are there any specific specifications re patients that are selected? So it's difficult to ask you to select a specific patient because there are just too many variables between clinics. But may I just suggest that within reason you try to do your examination on patients who you are comfortable imaging. So just to cite an extreme example, don't submit images from a patient that you've had to go to intensive care to image. That would just, I think, you know, be difficult. And I'm being extreme, but what I'm trying to illustrate here is that because you know that, you know, roughly when, you know, this is going to happen, you can have a bit of a list, look at the list, you know, maybe the day before, and say, well, these 3 patients, I think I ordinarily would do, and they're outpatients, so I would be comfortable doing those. I hope that answers that question. Yeah. If it's still not clear, please, yeah, answer. Please ask again. Another question, are the practical exams to be performed with your supervisor or alone, like normal exams? So, thank you. That is an excellent question. What we will do is communicate with your clinic, and we will ask you to do it privately. Now, if the clinic has a real problem with that, we'll try and reach some kind of agreement. But obviously this is your exam, and we're going to be asking you to complete the exam, obviously in the first place yourself, and to do so unsupervised. Now, if that's not the way your clinic operates, we will have to come to some other arrangement, but that's the way we're anticipating things being done. Is there a change in the minimum number of scans for this semester for the logbook? So, at present, there is no change for the minimum number. What I have suggested to everyone is that they count back, and most people have probably done this. They're probably counting from the time they submitted their last logbook, which was at the end of November last year, and have continued counting patients from that time. So that's what we're expecting you to do, and we anticipate that that will provide you with enough time by the time you know, we reach the end of June to have achieved the numbers. If it's still not doesn't reach that point, that's when we'll have to come to some arrangement individually. I think the best way to do it is person to person. Now, general criteria here will be, okay, if you haven't quite reached it, but for example, we're very happy with the way you're imaging, it'll just mean that you will have to acquire some more patient images in semester 2. So there's certainly some flexibility, you know, the end of this semester won't necessarily have to be a cut-off point, as it were. Can we select 3 staff members in our laboratory in case the day is so busy? Let me get my head around this. Can we select 3 staff members in our laboratory in case? So I guess what you're asking is, can you scan a staff member? I think that scanning a staff member would be undesirable. Patients are the best, unless there's a really good reason for doing that. I am very hesitant to recommend that that be done. I think it is much better that you acquire these images on patients. A question about the guidelines for measuring the LVOT. That's a good question. So the guidelines are somewhat conflicting. So the measurement for the LVOT, when you're measuring the diameter with 2D, can be made either at the hinge points, which we recommend, or 5 to 10 millimeters proximal to the hinge points. So if you acquire or make a measurement that way, you won't be graded down, because the guidelines do make that. And the reason they do that is because, as you correctly point out, that's done in view that it's part of the calculations for aortic valve area. And because the sample volume, when you're going to be measuring the VTI, will be taken from a point, say 5 to 10 millimeters proximal to the aortic valve, that's why the diameter measurement in some guidelines recommend that it not be done at the hinge point. The reason why some guidelines do recommend that it's done at the hinge point is that it means that it's done at a more standardized position each time. So I hope I've clarified the guidelines that are grey anyway. Is there specific pathology required? So the tasks will be related to imaging and measurements predominantly. Some of them may mean that you are using color or Doppler or something else to detect something, a regurgitant lesion, for example. So that will be required, but what we're not going to require is certainly anything complex that wouldn't ordinarily, in this already challenging scenario, you know, we don't want to be making it difficult for you or for ourselves. So at the moment, don't be looking for patients with necessarily specific pathology. Do we need to study within a specific time? So, good question. There is not a time limit on the study. The time limit really is related to your, you know, what your clinic would ordinarily allow. Now, I hope that you appreciate from the challenges that come from answering all these questions that every clinic is different, and we're trying to provide a reasonable option for you all to complete these things without making it too difficult. So we just felt that applying a time limit would just make things even more difficult than normal. So no, there will be no specific time limits placed on that. I will just in between, I think I've answered questions so far, all of them so far. I will be sending an email to every clinical supervisor next week on the 1st of June. I better just check my calendar to make sure the 1st of June is a Monday. I've already managed to show how poor I am at getting dates right. So next Monday is the 1st according to my phone. Next Monday I will send an email to all clinical sites providing, I hope, in a reasonably succinct way what is required. Now, obviously, if you are able to provide them with a little bit of information, that will help. And hopefully, over the next couple of weeks, this will all become a lot clearer as I provide more information, send it to them. We have another Zoom session. There will be another Zoom session on the 16th of June, which is a Tuesday. And I'll just double check. Yeah, the 16th of June is a Tuesday. And that again will be related to exams, just making sure that you guys feel supported, understand what the requirements are, etc., etc. So the last thing I wanted to do is to tell you about the logbook. At this stage, we will ask you to submit the logbook on the 29th of June. Okay, that's a Monday. And I spoke about the logbook earlier about, counting sort of back to the beginning, back from where you started last year, at the end of November last year, to allow a little bit more flexibility. Ordinarily, the logbook would be submitted about 2 weeks earlier than that. So it's not a big extension, but I hope that that provides some flexibility. If there are still challenges, I think rather than changing it for everyone, I might just speak to each person specifically, because everyone will have a slightly different, everyone's in a slightly different situation, obviously. So to recap, starting from the top, the good news is it looks as though we'll be able to get back on campus next semester. So I am very happy about that, because I understand that it's been very difficult for you. Obviously, sonography is a very practically oriented skill, and doing all of this remotely has been difficult. The assessments that you have submitted, the most recent ones, the imaging evaluation, we are in the middle of marking, and I hope to get those back to you very soon. The Principles of Cardiac Sonography 3, the case report is due this Friday, so just a bit of a reminder there. The Practice of Cardiac Sonography, the end of semester exam, as you have heard, is going to be online, will be what's called proctored, so there will be some kind of review of what you're doing, and I will leave it to the assessments team to explain that properly to you. But what it will mean is that you have at least sort of two occasions where you log in to make sure, one, that you have the technology that enables you to do the exam remotely, and then secondly that you're comfortable with the way it's going to be reviewed. So that's that exam. We went into details of the specific parts to it. So I hope you understand those. The practical exam I've just spoken to you about. There's another question, I'll get to that in a moment. I will ask you to complete that practical exam in your clinic as per what we spoke about. The tasks, as I said, will be drawn from pools. Those pools you will have access to very soon, so that you can prepare and go into the exam anticipating what you will be examined on, and then you'll submit that via a link with exams having been saved in DICOM format. There's another question here. Are we going to de-identify these patients prior to USB through DICOM? Thank you. That's a very good question. So DICOM format, the way it's structured, does not allow you to de-identify patients. And that's a specific design. That's part of the way that this particular format is designed, so that people can't inadvertently erase patient details. What this is meant to provide is the possibility to exchange patient information among practitioners and things like that without erasing anything. So in this particular case, do not worry about the fact that the patients won't be de-identified. I know if you were in other settings, you would want to do that to protect the patient's privacy, but we both understand that that can't be done, but also we commit not to, in any way compromising the patient's identity or privacy or anything like that. As I said earlier, the exam, you will be asked to acquire images on either or the 23rd of June, which is a Tuesday, or the 24th of June, which is a Wednesday, and then upload those images on the 25th of June, which is a Thursday. Okay, so it gives you 2 days in which to complete those 3 tasks on 3 separate patients, and then the following day to upload those to allow you some time to write those critiques and to complete the report. And it, hopefully with like other assessment items that you submit, there will be clear folders, etc., in which to submit those. Again, I know this is really different to the way you're used to operating. I hope you see some of the rationale behind it. I want to reassure you that if you've been, following along with all the material that's been given so far, from lecture material to demonstration videos, you've been doing the assessment items, that there's nothing really that's going to surprise you in terms of either the practical exam or the final exam. So hopefully this means that you'll at least be able to complete this unit, and we'll all be able to move on to to semester 4, hopefully everyone will be successful in getting through. So this has been a little bit of a marathon. There's another question about the report. So yeah, I'll provide details of the report. It won't be in the traditional a layout as per what you would ordinarily provide at your clinic. There'll be a template for you to complete, and on that template there'll be some things for you to include, so that we're very clear about what images we should be looking at. So, as well as the patient exams that you're going to be sending another document that just makes it clear, so that you can convey to us exactly what you've submitted, what you're wanting, which of the exams you want us to mark, which parts of the exam include the material. Thursday the 25th is the day to upload. There was a typo earlier. Thank you. The questions seem to be slowing down just a little bit. Okay. So I'll just give 30 more seconds for questions. Thanks for tuning in. There'll be, as I said, at least one more Zoom session. There'll be one on the 16th of June. There'll be some more information in the next little while about exams, both for yourselves and for your clinical supervisor, that I hope will help to provide some clarity. Bear with us. We're trying to make it happen. Anyway, look, thanks for participating. I'll stop recording in a moment. You can watch this again if you were a little bit late signing in. A couple of thank yous. You're welcome. No problem. Thank you for your attention. Thanks for hanging in there. And I'll send out those pools to you shortly. With regards to the final exam, there'll be some exemplar things sent out to you as well. Before you get those exemplar questions and the pools, you'll get your imaging evaluation back. So it's close to being finished. Hopefully the imaging evaluation there'll be more feedback, and you'll start to understand a little more clearly the kind of things we're trying to get you to aim towards. I must say that on the whole, things have been done really well. So I encourage you guys to keep hanging in there. You've done really well to get this far to date, and keep going. So I'll sign off. Thanks very much, and we'll be in touch.